それではお時間になりましたので始めてまいりたいと思います。次は英語でのコミュニティセッションとなっております。日本語でお聞きになりたい方はお手元の同時通訳レシーバーのチャンネルを1に合わせてお聞きください。それではニーナ・コラーさんとマイケル・ロドリゲスさんによります Hacking the Cold Blue Seas 太平洋を越えた海事コミュニティの構築です。ご覧ください。
Hey, everybody at Code Blue. It's so happy. I'm glad you came. Thank you for being here. I promise you we'll try not to be boring. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Ducky, also occasionally known as Michael Rodriguez. When I'm not working on maritime stuff with Nina, I'm a principal consultant with Mandiant.
Okay, so I'm Nina Kollars. I am sometimes referred to as Kitty, but everybody just calls me Nina anyway. So I am a professor at the United States Naval War College, but I am also just a good friend to Ducky, and we spend a lot of time at DEF CON, which is a infosec and hacking convention in the United States. And so we're very excited to be taking part at Code Blue this year, and we're really hoping to come see you all in person next year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So what do we want to talk about today?
So the reason we're here talking to you guys is because what we'd like to bring to Code Blue next year is some conversations and kind of fun activities around maritime cybersecurity.
What's maritime cybersecurity?
So maritime cybersecurity is kind of any infosec problems or issues that revolve around the ocean. As we know, most of the Earth is the ocean. Something like over 90% of commerce is transacted that way. Goods have to get from point A to point B, and the ocean's still the fastest, best, cheapest way we have to get it there. But things have gone a bit weird lately. So we have pirates again. That's new. Actual like, hey, this is our ship now, and we're going to take it pirates. We have geopolitical issues as far as other nation states kind of being less than friendly over the friendly seas. And
yeah, so what keeps me up at night about what is vulnerable about maritime? And I think what's interesting about this question is everybody is excited to talk about industrial control systems or ICS. And people are excited to talk about land-based cyber vulnerabilities or infosec problems, privacy, making sure that your connections are secured and stable. One of the things that we don't think about very often, however, is that we need the communication systems that happen under the ocean, the communication systems that happen above the ocean, and then the ships on the ocean to be equally as secure. So Ducky has said that 90% of the world's economy runs on the ocean. And over the last probably 3 decades, all of that commerce, all those systems to include militaries, but also just everyday civilian ships, everyday person's ships and companies, they have automated so much of those systems that now for a giant container ship, there might be maybe 30 people total on the ship, because so much of it has been automated. And as we know from the history of automation, security is often the last thing people think about, and it's one of our major concerns. So from your perspective, Ducky, what are some of the major problems with, what do you think about when I say maritime cyber vulnerability?
Sure. So we are all have gone through and are still going through a global pandemic. And when it comes to, and these are things I think about as a cybersecurity practitioner who delves mostly in private sector and commerce, not always necessarily in government issues. And so the things I worry about is that, again, the reason I brought up the pandemic is because aside from worrying things like being in the US and saying, hey, I can't find a PS5 or a Nintendo Switch anywhere, there's also goods, there's food, there is vaccines, there's medicines, there are other things that people, and depending on your part of the world, you don't just need it to be comfortable, you need it to live. literally. And so, as Nina mentioned, the rise of automation, and despite it being such a large field, I don't often see a lot of research in it. Right now, a lot of and this is where Nina's research and my work kind of overlap sometimes, is that it's still very much nation states that are the ones that are kind of abusing technology when it comes to maritime issues, whether that be AIS transponders or GPS spoofing, things like that, of that nature. As we all know, it's only a matter of time before that is commoditized, before anyone with not even a large amount of money and not a lot of funding can exploit these things.
In fact, just recently, so if you're not a person who thinks about maritime vulnerability, you probably wouldn't have heard of these stories. I think everybody knows that supply chains are compressed. And I don't mean supply chain in the InfoSec way. I mean supply chain as in how do goods go from one country to another country, supply chain. So we have been through the pandemic, we have realized that these supply chains are vulnerable. But if you haven't thought about maritime vulnerability, you probably don't know that there have been major attacks over the last maybe year and a half on port terminals around the world. And so the port is the space itself, and the terminal is all the machinery that gets goods from the ship back onto land and off again. So these terminals have been attacked. The most recent cases that I remember, one's in Houston. Was a set in South Africa, and then I think everybody remembers the accidental case, which would be NotPetya on the Maersk shipping company. So it's a really big problem, and I think, as Ducky said, we're just not seeing very much research from people in the InfoSec community on this question in particular, just given how large it is. And so it's an area of concern for us. And one of the things that we want to do at Code Blue is start to create that community that comes together to think about it. And we'll talk about that in a second. I just want to say a little bit from my perspective, because Ducky's perspective comes at it from, I think, from the corporate or commercial side.
Yep.
And so he's thinking about how to protect businesses better. My concern, working for the Department of Defense in the United States and the Navy, comes at it from a Navy perspective. So the US Navy and associated navies around the world are in charge of helping to keep what we call the freedom of navigation. And so how do you keep all these ships, all of these commercial ships flowing? And that is in part the responsibility of the Coast Guard and the Navy. It's the responsibility of the international shipping companies. It's the responsibility of the ports and the captains of the port. So there's so many overlapping responsibilities. And for me, as a person who works for the Navy, not quite understanding how that all comes together, it has me a little bit worried, because I know a lot of it is not well protected. And I think right now we need to be thinking about how to create security before the next major incident occurs.
Right. And so building on what Nina just said, the interesting thing is that we call it Maritime Infosec, and a lot of folks might think that ends at the stuff on and under the water, right? But it very much doesn't. So that the interface between the maritime transport and land, right? Those ports, other major shipping centers, that's a problem too, right? There's a lot of the cranes are automated. So a ransomware attack can just take them right out. And there's lots of other cyber attacks as well. And there's also the problem can also be bigger than just a port, right? So if you're familiar, if you fly a lot, or if you used to, or if you will again, you'll know sometimes that if the large airport near me, so Newark Liberty International Airport, if there's a hurricane or if there's an issue where EWR is backed up, that cascades throughout the entire air traffic environment, right? And so if you are flying out of Narita Airport and your flight is delayed, it could very well be not their fault. It could be something that happened on the other side of the world, right? The other side of the Pacific. Very much the same thing happens with maritime trade.
It's true.
You have one port that suffers an attack, and there are goods that are now going to back up and cascade and not get to where they need to all over the world. There's a lot of money that gets wasted. A lot of times in maritime transport, much like in InfoSec and much like in information technology, there's a lot of just-in-time kind of shipping, and the fuel on vessels is measured down to the last ounce, and so any delay can cost untold amounts of money that just keeps escalating.
So it's very much a global problem, and so I wonder, why do we? So Ducky and I have been thinking about this problem in the United States. We met at DEF CON where we talked about, we both thought this was a big issue. We have some friends at DEF CON, and we have some friends around the world who are very interested in growing our community of people who worry about this, who do research on this, who want to develop good policy. Ducky, why Japan?
That's a great question. So one of the things that Nina and I have noticed to begin with is that maritime, again, despite it being such a large vertical, such a large sector, doesn't get enough love. There's not a ton of research that is done around the topic. There's some in the US, but Japan has some of the largest ports in the world, some of the largest volumes of traffic and commerce flow through Japan. And we started asking ourselves the question of, well, that's awesome. There must be tons of research in Japan. There must be tons of people who are thinking about this problem and, oh my God, we are silly because we should have thought of that to begin with.
And maybe there is, and maybe you're just hiding, or maybe we haven't heard, or maybe, so my kana reading has gotten really bad over the years. So maybe maybe it's not yet written in English, which is also fine, but we want to find you, or we want you to get interested in thinking about this question. We think that the Japanese, well, from the United States Navy perspective, the Japanese have been long allies, great friends. And our US Coast Guard is very familiar. And so I think it just makes good sense to start talking about bringing this conversation, not just inside the United States, but internationally. And also, I just have a very deep love of Japan, and I know Ducky does too. And in fact, I feel bad now because we didn't even start our whole greeting. We should have said hello. So I would say sort of konnichiwa. I think it's afternoon. Actually, I don't know when the show is airing. But anyway, konnichiwa. It's nice to meet you.
And I'll take care of the morning. So ohayou gozaimasu.
Nina desu. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. So thank you so much. Okay, so what should we do? What are we going to do? Why are we talking? It's not just enough to say hello. What do we want to do? This is 2021. We're here during a pandemic. Why talk now?
So we wanted to first introduce ourselves. We wanted to put out that call to find all of you in Japan who are interested in maritime security, whether you're already working on it, whether you're thinking about it, or you just need an excuse to submit, a talk to an awesome conference like Code Blue. Consider this an invitation to do that. As soon as the CFPs are open for Code Blue in 2022, we hope to see some amazing research projects and papers from you guys. From our side, we are super excited if you decide that you'd like to have us to come back in 2022 and bring the things we've been working on, bring kind of our love of the InfoSec community to Japan. And there's a few ways that we're thinking of doing that, right? So we have a couple of partners that we work with in the Atlantic Council and another organization called Fathom 5. So we'd like to bring, from our side, we'd like to bring some talks already kind of pre-canned for you guys about Maritime Infosec, discussions around policy, because one of the interesting things these days is, and a lot of you probably already know this, is it's not every solution's a technical one. It's not a matter of throwing up an IDS or a firewall and setting up a SIM and like, oh, good, we'll catch all the evil. That's good. It needs to be done, right? Vulnerabilities in software and hardware need to be discussed and patched and mitigated. But the other side of that is also policy, right? There needs to be legislation. There needs to be
international cooperation, right? We need to start a strong dialogue between the InfoSec communities, anybody who likes to play with maritime technologies, even if it's your first time, right? We need to start having the Japanese start working with hopefully with the United States, and just build a nice, healthy community. One of the things I hope, again, if we can be there in 2022, one of the things I hope to do is bring one of our dear friends, Gary Kessler. He is an AIS educator, so he can teach some classes on what AIS is, which is an international ship tracking system. And he can teach you about AIS and teach you how to work with it, teach you what its vulnerabilities are, and what are some other things we can bring.
So we have another partner, like you mentioned before, Fathom 5. So one of the fun things that we do at the Maritime ICS Village, at DEF CON, and in a couple other places in the US, is we have what is called a CTF. So I'm not sure how well this is going to translate, but normally, right, it's CTF, capture the flag. In this case, it's SEA, as in ocean, right? And that's because it's our take on a traditional CTF. So the awesome folks at Fathom 5 have created a system that lets you hack into the bridge systems of a large vessel. You can, with the ultimate aim of causing some serious mischief. So there's points to be scored. If you're, already a veteran pen tester, it's a great way to cut your teeth in kind of a new environment. If you've never done a CTF in your life, it's better still, right? Because it gives you, there's not too many chances, or there are not too many opportunities for someone to invite you on their vessel and ask you to sink it, or make it just turn in circles for days, right? So that's one of the other things that we hope to bring. And along with...
so I wanted to ask Ducky, do you think that a person who doesn't speak English natively or very well would be able to do the CTF?
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, why so?
Yeah, I mean, computers all speak the same language. Even if we'll pick on an open source OS, right? So even if your copy of Linux is localized for Japanese, all the stuff that underpins it all runs the same. So even if you're not, the world's most prolific English speaker, you'll still be able to do it and still be able to have a lot of fun doing it.
In fact, so we're so proud of our friends at Fathom 5, that last year, it would be last August, this year's DEF CON, the winners of the Fathom 5 CTF got the black badge. And so it was a very exciting time for that team. It's a very exciting time for Fathom 5. So now there'll be a black badge competition.
Yep.
It'll be amazing.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're also hoping to bring some education. Again, as you mentioned, our friend Gary Kessler, who is an AIS expert, and we've got access to lots of other super, super smart folks, smarter than us.
Much smarter.
Who want to share, right? It's the purest form of our respective InfoSec communities, right? Which is sharing information, learning from each other, playing at the same time, but also learning important things and things that at the end of the day also help other people, right? The whole point of InfoSec is not just to keep systems safe, but the people behind them.
I think that's right. So I think, and then the final thing that I really want to stress, I like to stress, in part because of my day job, but also because the policy area is more my expertise, is to think about, it's not enough to teach people about the system. It's not enough to educate them on how to make it safer at the technical level. But as Ducky had said, we have to make it safer and better, not just the machines, but the people in the processes also. So working together with some United States-based think tanks, like our friends at the Atlantic Council, we want to bring the policy, so just like sort of a hat, right? You've got the machines, you've got the people, you've got the policies, and then I want the policy hat on top that says, this is how the United States, this is how Japan, this is how companies, this is how cybersecurity firms can work together to create this safe, robust place, again, to sort of better protect that 90% of the world's traffic and trade. And so that is our, it's a small task. It's not a big task at all.
Not a big
so,
task.
but we want to grow this community organically. So we're really excited.
Yeah. So, thanks for watching this. In the next year, between your awesome experience at Code Blue this year and by the next time that the announcement comes out for when Code Blue 22 is going to happen, we really ask that you think about this stuff. If it's something that you've not considered before, look into it. It is really fascinating.
You have time.
You have
lots
plenty of time. But it's kind of like a sort of untapped field to think about, and kind of the sky is the limit with that. So we are really hopeful that this is something you guys are going to be interested in. Nina and I would both love to be there with you guys in person next year. We have so much that we want to learn and so much that we want to share. We really want to have fun with you guys, and learn from you, and hopefully maybe you'll learn something from us.
And I know this is a pre-recorded talk, but also somewhere in this platform, our contact information is available. And so our emails are available. If you have questions, if you have an idea that you want us to think about, I mean, it's not for us to say, it's for Code Blue, but we'd be happy to help you talk through it. If you want to think about, I'm thinking about a project, help me narrow it down. We would love to do it.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time that we hang out is spent thinking about stuff that we have no answers for.
That's right.
It's the most way that we have fun. So we hope you guys will join us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of Code Blue.
Have a great conference, guys.
Sayonara. Bye-bye.
ニーナさん、マイケルさん、ありがとうございました。